Hey, 6th grade, Mrs. Toivola here again with your help video for 5.2.2, our practice page. We're going to do one problem on the first page and then we'll do one on the back page. All right, we are going to let's look at the first one. Here's the diagram. It looks like 1 is colored out of 2, 3, 4. That means that's the fraction 1/4. Now we need to write equivalent fractions. You'll notice that it says over 10 and over 100. So we'll write that over 10 and over 100. All right, we're going to get into a little bit of trouble here. How do we make 4 become 10? 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. That means the answer is in between. So we're just going to go backwards and do 10 divided by 4. That's 2.5. So that means we need to multiply by 2.5. The calculator already says 2.5. So if we do times 4, see how it gets us to 10? Then we need to do the same thing on the top, times 2.5. And because it just says 1 times 2.5, then this is pretty easy. This is 2.5 over 10. Now, it's also 2.5 over 10, or 2 5/10. At this point, you might say, Ms. Toivola, that looks terrible. And I would agree. I would not leave this fraction as my final answer, but it is equivalent. It's not in simplest form because it has a decimal. All right, let's just keep on going then. So I'm going to write an equals and then draw another line. I know 10 times 10 is 100. So times 10, if you don't know that answer, put that in your calculator, 2.5 times 10. Oh, it's 25. Hey, look, it's the same digits, 2 and 5, but there's no decimal point. All right, I'm going to circle my answers here so we can see them a little bit better. 25 over 100 and 2.5 over 10. Next, I need a decimal. So there's a bunch of different ways to do this. I'm going to jump back to that original fraction of 1/4. I'm going to highlight it here, 1/4. And for our decimal, I'm going to write 1 divided by 4 and put that in my calculator. Here we go. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. Or you might remember, we can put 100 under here. This is 25 hundredths. If you just know how to write the fraction 25 hundredths over here on the left as a decimal, then you're going to save yourself a lot of time in this assignment. And if you don't, then you'll need to put it in a calculator. And look, 25 divided by 100 will get us the same decimal because they are equivalent fractions. All right, the last one, the percent. To find the percent, I'm going back to the fraction where 100 is the denominator. Here it is. 100 is the denominator. So we'll rewrite that as the percent sign. And the numerator was 25. That means that it is 25%. All right, that's the first problem. The entire front page is done like that. But on the back page, I give you a decimal instead. And you're going to need to write it as a percent, as fractions over 10 and 100, as a simplified fraction, and as a diagram. So let's jump into this. For the decimal, I know that the 0 is in the ones place. So then every digit behind, so there's a 4 here, so I'll put a 0 right underneath it. That means that this is 4 over 10, or 4/10. I can write that for the equivalent fraction over 10. It also means that as an equivalent fraction with 100 on the bottom, 10 times 10 is 100, so 4 times 10 is 40. Now, I have the fraction with 100 on the bottom, so there's the percent sign. The number on top, 40, is the number in front of the percent sign. So we'll write 40, grab green for that, 40, and then the percent sign. Okay, we're getting really close. Now we're going to go backwards and try to make this fraction look smaller. So I'm looking for a common factor of 4 and 10. I know that I can use 1 times 4 to make 4, and I can use 2 times 2. If I count by 4, I don't say 10. 4, 8, 12. So I'm not going to use 4. I'm going to go to the next biggest factor, 2. Oh yeah, I can count by 2 and say 10. So for my fraction, I'm going to have 2 and 5. Here's how I know. One of two ways. I can say some number times 2 is 10, and some number times 2 is 4. And I can see 5 times 2 and 2 times 2. Or I can go backwards and think about this as divide by. 10 back to 5 is divide by 2. Right? And 4 back to 2 is divide by 2. Right? So either way is fine. Doesn't matter to me. Right? And now for the fraction, the denominator is 5, so I'm going to draw something. I like to draw rectangles. You know this about me. Okay, and I'm going to make it be in 5 pieces. So here's 4, and add one more piece on the bottom. So there's my 5, and now I'm going to color in 2 out of the 5. And I'm done. Right? So I've got a diagram, I've got a fraction, I've got a couple of equivalent fractions, I've got a decimal. Right, go back and get rid of that over 10 now, and I've got a percent. Your job is to finish the front and the back. Some of these get a little bit tricky, so you just got to think kind of hard through it.